Greetings from the Long Island Sound podcast. Welcome to the show. Please rate, review, and comment on the show, and call our listener line and leave a message for our guests. Dial 631-800-3579. All right, enjoy the show.
Thanks for joining us for the Long Island Sound podcast. Each week we explore new music and dive deeper with the artists and their stories behind the music. Please subscribe and rate and review us wherever you stream this podcast. Here's your host, Steve Yusko.
Gene Casey's voice captivates as it draws you into his roots rock music style. I felt honored to converse with this industry veteran. In this episode, we explore Gene's background and his band, the Lone Sharks. They're recognized as the Hamptons house band. Gene and his band have made quite a name for themselves. We'll do a deep dive into his diverse catalog as we feature 4 of his songs. Let's take a listen to I Love What I Do.
I love what I do. When I do it to you, it's a measure of pride to keep you happy and satisfied. I know what I am, a hard-working man, working on you. I love what I do. I'm an old hand, honey, and there's a loving game. I've been around a while and I learned some things, the tricks of the trade to set your heart on fire. Well, I put a lot of care into what I do, a whole lot of attention to the details too. It's gotta be right tonight, I'm the man to hire. And I love what I do. But when I do it to you, I give it all I've got. And I've been told that's quite a lot. I love my career, having you near the whole night through. I love what I do. My daddy told me, son, you'll be a happy man if you do what you like, do the best you can. It took a little while to find where my talents lay. So come on over, honey, let me get to work. Gonna loosen up my tie, gonna roll up my shirt. Got a job to do, you can't wait another day. And I love what I do. But when I do it to you, it's a measure of pride to keep you happy and satisfied. I know what I am, a hard-working man, working on you. I love what I do when I'm working on you. I love what I do.
A poet who writes verse to music is a simple definition of a troubadour. Gene Casey is our East End troubadour. He's been acclaimed by the Long Island Music Hall of Fame for contributions to the island's musical landscape, adding to the Long Island Sound. Over the course of decades of Gene's career, he's played every roadhouse, bar, honky tonk from Manhattan to Montauk. Along with his band, the Lone Sharks, they're also known as the house band of the Hamptons. His original music has been acclaimed locally and internationally. Several of his songs have become soundtracks to television and feature films. And with that, I welcome Gene Casey to the Long Island Sound. Welcome, Gene. Good to have you.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
I tell you, one of my great joys, and you've been around for a while, is discovering you, so to speak, in that my wife Debbie's a huge country fan. I'm really getting into Americana, and I just love, and I hate to pigeonhole anybody into a genre, but I love the honesty of your music and what it brings to the world, healing to the world, and honesty to the world. And that was like my first impression of your music and your voice. You've got such a great. It's almost like we plucked you out of 80 years ago out of country music. You just have this great sound. And anyway, I just want to say that. Kind of gushing a little bit. I apologize. So,
go right ahead, gush on.
Gush on. Hey, I'm going to spend 45 minutes of gushing on Gene. Hey, that sounded horrible. Anyway, so Gene.
Well, yeah, about pitch and classification and cat. I mean, that's the bane of any musician's life. To have to describe and market one's self is.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think we're very good at. We're too busy just doing it, making the music. But I understand in this day and age, and really in any day and age, you got to reach a potential audience. And so, I've been called rockabilly, swing, alternative country, Americana, and other names not as polite.
I'm with you.
But people still will always say, "What kind of music you guys play?" And
yeah, it's interesting. People almost need like these guardrails, and it comes down to marketing and market and seeing if there's a market for you, and that's just the reality of the music business. But I think it's in the ears of the beholder. What did you hear in Gene's song? I heard rockabilly. I heard Johnny Cash. I heard this. Mm-hmm. I like this. That's not my thing, but oh man, this next song is different. And I think that's where you have that, broad scope where I at least would think a musician wants to shy away with, hey, look, don't put me in a very narrow category, because I think my appeal is going to be a little bit broader than what you like. But the businessmen in our life like to categorize, and
I understand that. Really, I do.
Put things in sets.
Let's face it, we all have to be our own businessman these days.
Yeah, exactly. And you're your own marketer in many cases. I equated this, and I spoke about this in another podcast, is that because of the availability of quality equipment, hey, look, I'm doing a podcast. I'm no professional, right? And it comes out pretty well. It's kind of like when they came out with the desktop printer, Boom. Now everybody can produce studio quality sound. That makes you be in the music business. Anyway, I digress. Let's do this. Let's turn back the pages a little bit. I'm really interested in that point in time in your life that you've either picked up an instrument and fell in love and said, hey, I can do this. And also when it comes to songwriting, where did it kind of click in for you, Gene?
Well, it happened at the same time.
Okay.
Learning to play an instrument and writing songs happened at the same time. It was the same adventure, same experience. Probably because I knew at an early age that the Beatles wrote most of their songs, and that was the whole point, it seemed, that this was new and creative. I never took guitar lessons, and I never wanted to play the guitar just to play the guitar. I wanted just to be the total package.
Okay.
So when I was very young, banging on a broom, pretending it was a guitar, I was making up songs and fantasizing that they were records. And
wow.
So, I was always writing songs.
Right.
And, as childish as they were the best I could do.
So was this in your teens, Gene, or how?
No, sooner than earlier
really?
than that.
Okay.
The key here is that I have an older brother, Vincent, 6 years older, and that's considerable. But he was prime Beatles age.
Okay.
So he was very much aware when they came here, whereas I was barely, aware of anything. But the Beatles were it, and really still are it for me in terms of points of departure and inspiration. And subsequently, devouring the Beatles catalog led me to earlier forms, earlier styles, rockabilly and so on. Mm-hmm. But back to your question, it happened at the same time. I learn a new chord, write a new song with that chord in it.
Okay.
And so
you were
I never separated it.
So you were self-taught? Did you ever?
Pretty much, yeah. Well, my brother Vin showed me a few chords, but then I just kind of took off and taught myself, which is good and bad.
Right.
It's good because I was passionate about it, and in later years I came to regret not learning to read music and music theory, as I've been interested in playing more than 4 chords and
right.
songs that are a little more challenging.
But what I find interesting, because I can read a little bit of music, I can't read and play it at the same time, because it's like chewing gum and walking for me. But it's interesting that you can go from both ends of the spectrum with that. But I would believe a person like yourself has such a well-trained ear that you know where to go with the chord changes and the progressions and that sort of thing. And that it's almost, if one sense is down as far as the music theory, that's tiny. I think the other ones have to grow. That's my theory,
I've heard that.
Yeah.
And certainly a lot of really sophisticated musicians never learn to read music. So, even like real hot jazz guys,
Right.
But I mean, I wish I could. I wish I could read music.
Gotcha. Hey,
now.
Let me ask you this: were you mostly a solo act going out there, or did you jump into a band early in life? Or
it was always bands.
Great. Okay.
The concept was brought down by the Beatles. Get some friends together and literally garage and basement bands and high school talent shows and, American Legion Hall that's having a talent show. All that was always a band. Get the band together.
Sure.
I never wanted to be a front person.
Oh, okay.
That kind of was fostered upon me and necessary evil to be the front person.
What was the inertia of not wanting to be a front man?
Well, I have to go back again. My brother was older and knew a lot more. He was the leader, and I was going to play more like the Dave Davies to his Ray Davies.
Okay.
And or Carl Wilson to his Brian Wilson. And but as things turned out, I got more involved in the real business as a professional, and eventually became the leader of a group. Mm-hmm. But even then, it was like my personality is more of a side person. At least it was then.
Right.
A long time ago. I've grown into the role over time, but always a band. And to this day, I mean, I build the group, Gene Casey and the Lone Sharks, and that's really just because I'm the remaining member, and it's important for me to get my name out there,
sure,
to the folks. But I still feel most comfortable in a band setting.
Gotcha. So, where'd you grow up? What was your hometown?
Malvern, Long Island, New York. I was born in Queens, but we moved to Malvern, and I spent my first 18 years there.
Okay.
And I think it's a wonderful village. It still is.
Yeah, it still is. Yeah. Now, is your brother still in music or no?
No, he's not. He was in the early incarnation of the Lone Sharks.
Okay.
Before moving to Florida, and so he's not playing. He'll sit in with us on occasion.
Great. Why don't we do this? Let's take a quick break, and we'll explore a lot more with Gene Casey when we come right back. Stick with us, everybody. At the Long Island Sound, we're much more than a podcast. We're building a community. Please go to gigdestiny.com, check out all our social media links, subscribe wherever you listen to the podcast. Please comment, call the listener line, tell us what you think, what questions we should ask, who we should have on the show. And most of all, we thank you for your generous support. And remember, support the artists who are guests on the show. Now back to the podcast. Hey, everybody, we're back with Gene Casey, who I consider the troubadour of the East End. Hey, Gene, our audience heard, I Love What I Do when we came into the program. How about you tell us a little bit about that song, how that came to be?
Well, it's a heavily double entendre. as I mangle the French. If it starts out, you're thinking it's about like a man who's proud of his job, and it is, but it's also a little naughty as well. But it's a popular tune that we wrote, and it gets a nice response. It was almost a kind of a line dance type song, a little faster though. So
okay,
and to me, it's a nice mix of the rock and roll influence and the kind of hardcore country influence and the twangy guitar. And the fun of it, like Chuck Berry's songs are very kind of sly, tongue in cheek, and so I'm proud of that song.
Nice, excellent.
It's simple, and simplicity is where it's at.
Oh yeah, no, I agree 100%. I mean, when you talk about simplicity, I think it just kind of grabs me more. Especially when I can understand, this is wacky, but when I can understand the lyrics, it gives me time to appreciate it. And it's funny because now I'm listening to like Springsteen, who does his songs more acoustically now, and I get all the lyrics. Back in the day when we can open an album cover and actually read the lyrics, that's not as easily obtainable. And then you go, oh, I know what he meant when he hit B-52. He's playing a jukebox, and I never got it. Maybe I'm the only one who didn't get it. But that's something to be said about country, old country, Americana, whatever what you want to call it, is that the lyrics kind of ring true and the simplicity can draw a lot of different meaning for a lot of different people, You
never mishear, I think, a country and western song. The lyrics, the voices are always up front, and the words are always simple and clear. And every word and every line belongs. There's no extraneous stuff.
Right.
Everything it's very, it's a strict formula, writing a country song. And I like that because, just get to the point, back up the point, move along, lyrically.
Yep.
And it's not easy to do because there's no filler, no waste. You got to be every syllable in a Hank Williams song is there for a good reason. There's nothing wasted.
Right. I found that also with John Prine's music, the simplicity of it and the choice of words, just kind of, to me, it kind of hung in my memory. They still hang in my memory. And that to me is a statement to say, hey, that's a quality song. If it can linger and have meaning to it, man, that's a double bonus. Let me ask you this, Gene. You've written for music and for films and television, and what's your process? Does the muse just kind of come to you and you act on it, or? And I know it's different for everybody and it's different for all occasions, but I'm curious how it strikes you and how you act upon it, I guess.
Well, I definitely belong to the camp of inspiration, of getting an idea and jumping on it and feverishly writing a song, trying to finish it quickly. That's pretty important when you're relying on inspiration. I'll hear someone will mention a phrase or will say something, and I'll hear it say, "Wow, that's a great title." And you better drop everything you're doing and get to the nearest guitar and notebook and go with it. And that's the beauty of that approach, but it's also impractical. Right. You'll be in the middle of somewhere, you can't just jump up and leave and write a song. And so whereas I spent some time in Nashville, and those guys, 9 o'clock, they punch in, sit down at the table with a notebook, and they're ready to write. It's like a job.
Right.
And they do it. And I've never been very good at that. However, working with these people, I started to be able to kind of write like I was on the assembly line.
Sure. Like the Brill Building back in the old days, right?
Exactly. And there are a lot of 9-to-5 writers, and they write great songs. And there are also people who don't write for 3 months, and suddenly they write an entire album in 6 weeks. Yeah.
You know, there's the discipline of it. I think that's the way your brain is wired, you know, and it's whether it's you wait for it and act on it. That's what separates you as a singer-songwriter from the rest of the world. Because as I've said, I've written 10,000 phrases to 14 million songs and never acted on it. Where you guys act, seriously, you guys act on it and you piece it together and you woodshed it to put it together. And yet there are others, like you said, that, 9 to 5, they go down and like, okay, I'm going to get inspired. I'm going to do it. Just another way of approaching it. I guess my question is this: when it came to, I'm very interested in, because one, this thing jumped out of your EPK that you did music for Justified, which was a series I thought was pretty good. I used to watch it with my late father-in-law, and we loved it. Yeah,
it was a good show.
Did they come to you and say, "Hey, we'd like you to write something for us," or is that they found you and found one of your?
Well, they found me. I had a publisher.
Okay.
In L.A. And there's a lady who's now retired, unfortunately. She was one of the last of the old-time publishers that would really hawk their catalog. And they would hustle it and call producers and musical directors saying, what do you guys need? Well, I got this. And we submitted a few songs to that show, and they liked it and they grabbed it. And once that happened, other shows kind of followed. But it was a long process. It took like 3 years to even get in the door. But very often a movie or a TV show will have a song that they're using as they're filming and editing, like already like a famous song. And then they try to get the rights to it, and it's way too expensive. So what they do is they look for songs like that. And sometimes people are very good at writing like an imitation song. But they'll say, do you have something that's kind of bluesy or swampy or, like such and such an artist? And I'll send what I think might fit.
Oh, that's cool.
And, but, being that I'm a recording artist per se, I write for myself. I don't really write for other singers. So, if you want one of my songs, it's going to be me singing them, apparently. So,
right.
But yeah, it worked out several times.
It's funny you say that because a good friend of mine, Mike Nugent, who you may know, Mike's band was in The Devil's Advocate, and Mike's a great player, most humble guy. He needs somebody to hawk his stuff, He's just, it's all about his music, and I'm saying that with great love. And they were in that movie, and it's exactly what you said. They were trying to get the rights to the Crossroads song or something like this with the devil thing. And they didn't want to pay the price, and they turned to the band that was in the bar for that scene, and they're like, yeah, we got this, and they used 2 of their songs. And I was like, yeah, and then once,
that's great.
They'll get a $140 check every now and then, as a residual.
Well,
those are nice surprises. It's, it's not a windfall,
No.
So,
but it is, it's nice to get that check, every few months. And it's just amazing how these things have life. They're out there.
Right. They're out. And that brings up another subject for me because, we talked about everybody with the ability to have a studio in their phone, literally. And I would say it's a crowded market. And how do you, I think you may have an advantage because you've been playing for decades and you've made a name for yourself. As far as I know, on Long Island. So that gives you kind of a stepping stone to things. But what do you do now to further your music and get it out into the ether?
I go on podcasts.
Excellent. And we did not speak about this before the show. That was a total setup. And Gene, congratulations.
It was like batting practice, man.
So, I'm like Larry King. I'm just going to keep throwing you the softballs all night long.
We've come to this point where it's really impossible for folks like us to continue as we were. A lot of independent performers, artists could print up 500 or 1,000 CDs.
Right.
And then sell a dozen at a gig, you know, and then 10 more or 5 more the next night. And by the end of the summer, you got to print up another grand, you know?
Yeah.
And it was a way of adding to, you know, the performance fee. It was a way of getting music to the fans, which is really the point.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also a way of like a calling card. You give it to people in the business. With streaming and, I mean, I'm still getting used to downloading, but I'm really shocked that we live in a world where we don't have the fixed text hard copy of music.
Right.
And I don't have any answers other than I'm just trying to join up and, you know, get hip to what's going on. But it's really the odds are against mature, independent artists. Unless you're like 21 and you're totally into TikTok, you got everything going and you get a billion hits.
Right.
You know, but, you know, times do change. I get that, you know, but it is kind of strange not to be able to hold up an LP or a CD or a cassette even. And this is my record. Take it home, listen to it, you know. Yeah,
you know, it's like now. So I you know, I listen to Spotify and that sort of thing, and you know, I think get on my soapbox a minute. There's this whole push for content on the internet, whether it's Spotify or whomever, you know. And Spotify's definitely taking advantage because you put your music up and you'll get an eighth of a penny for every 5,000 plays. Or I don't even know what their formula is, which is crazy. And you know they're making the big money, and you're getting the pittance that's left over. And yet, a man of my age, my wife and I love listening to live music. And you know what? It's almost like buying local. This gives me an opportunity to support the local artist, go out. And one of my curiosities has always been, I never go up to somebody while they're playing. I'm sure people have like talked to you while you were singing, you know, in a bar. Is that curiosity of, gee, what's this guy's story? Or, you know, he writes such beautiful music. How does he do it? You know, that sort of thing. But now to try and compete out there, I think it comes down to the quality of the music as well. I think that kind of carries you in the long run, you know, get you out of the weeds, so to speak. So, anyway, not to be a downer about it, but that's...
No, you're not. I mean, there should be the pull to make the best possible music you can make. I mean, part of that is competition.
Sure.
There's a lot of people who want to do this and who think they can do it or do it, you know, on a weekend. So there's a need to put out the very best you have and nothing but the very best, just so possibly you can get noticed.
Right.
And so that's kind of a healthy thing. It forces the artist to, you know, no nonsense, really try to write the best song you can. It's a song that's undeniably good, you know, that people will have to kind of listen to. That's the quest. And, you know, it's not like just a single and then 10 songs as filler. You can't, those days are gone. Now it's really just a single. I mean, when I'll put this to you. Mm-hmm. When's the last time that you bought or downloaded an entire album and listened all the way through? Maybe you do that all the time. I don't.
No, I don't do it all the time. I do it for the artists that I've found out and say, you know what, I want to. Yeah. I want this because it's definitely worth listening to. I find it also interesting, you know, with you know these EPs that go out, you know, 3 songs, just artists banging out 3 songs just to get the content. It's almost like you have to keep making ice cream cones, you know, to say, oh yeah, they're still out. Oh yeah, they're still out there. You know, they're still trying to build an audience.
That's true.
It's got to be extremely frustrating. But that leads me to this question. What made you move out east into that market? Like, how did that come about for you?
I was living in the city, early '80s.
Manhattan or Brooklyn or?
I was in Manhattan.
Okay.
I was lucky enough in the Village, and there was a kind of post-punk rock and roll band I was in.
Really?
And yeah, it wasn't, I say post-punk in that we weren't punks, but it was that period of the late 70s, early 80s where early rock and roll was becoming noticed again.
Okay.
And as I guess as a sort of result of the punk scene, which was similar to, I always felt like a lot of the punks sounded like the early Kinks anyway, and the early Who. And but really not getting anywhere, and playing CBGBs and splitting $30 2 o'clock in the morning, doing that. And my sister Claire was already out on the East End in Sag Harbor. She was working for the author John Irving.
Okay. Oh.
And so I got a job working as on his property, and it was really supposed to be just for a few months, but then it just kind of, I ended up staying in Sag Harbor. This is now the late 80s. And commuting, to the city. And I put together my bar band.
Okay.
I said, because back then there were a lot of bars.
Sure.
And the drinking age was 18, kind of the Wild West back then. But
I was able to drink at 18 as well.
Yep. And I had the bar band, which was the Loan Sharks. It was just my idea. Let's play early rock and roll, rockabilly, blues, and because there's a lot of bars out here, and that's exactly what happened. And suddenly, it became my main job.
Wow!
Suddenly, it got serious. We were being hired for parties and weddings and the whole Hamptons scene. And I brought in, increasingly serious professional musicians. And it's kept that way.
Wow. I'm going to ask you a left field question. You ever play at Murph's Backstreet Tavern?
Yes,
Okay.
I did play there. Murph was my former father-in-law.
Really?
Tom Murphy.
By the way, we did not discuss this before the show.
This is,
just to give a little background, and if you can give me more perspective, it'd be great. I'm in the security business, and I had to go out to Murph's Tavern, and I was new in this company, and I ran out to Sag Harbor from Huntington in almost Johnny on the spot, and I'm looking for this place, thinking it's a huge place, and it's a block away from the police station, no parking lot. It looks like a shithole, to be honest with you. And the guy who was the owner at that time was the nicest guy in the world. And he'd tell me about all the famous people that go there and stuff like that. And been around since the 1700s. And I was like, this is a cool place in Sag Harbor, in the middle of, all these great buildings. There's this little tiny place.
Do you know roughly what year that was?
I'm going back about 7 years ago. Because the gentleman
that's after my time.
Then the gentleman sold it. Again, he sold it to that point. Yeah. But he said people would gather in the backyard with milk crates, and he would stand at the door. And I said, well, how do you manage people? He goes, I greet everybody at the door, and everybody knows if you fight in this bar, you're banned. And he was really strict about it. And he would get all the kids who worked on the yachts down the block, and people coming in ordering daiquiris, and they'd be like, we don't serve daiquiris. Have a Bloody Mary, a whiskey, or a beer, and that's about it.
Spent many, many, many hours there working and playing.
Oh, really?
And sure.
Oh, that's great. That leads me into. By the way, for those who are listening, I'm going to put links to Gene's music and all the people we talk about. You'll see their websites and this tavern we're talking about. If you go to Sag Harbor, you have to go there, because I'd love to tell the owner we're throwing people his way. Not that he needs it, I'm sure. But if you have a curiosity, you can look in the chapter marks and you'll see more information about what we're talking about. So,
in fact, just as an aside, there are two framed cartoons that I drew for Murph that should still be there on one of the posts.
Nice.
One's a Bill Clinton thing, and the other is a milk carton. Have you seen this?
Kid, right?
I did two cartoons, and he put them up there, and I believe they were still there post Murph, and perhaps still there right now. I haven't been in there.
Yeah, I'm sure, because the place does look timeless when I enter, where they still have everything there. It's quite the unique place in Sag Harbor. I'd invite people to go there. I want to go there now. Hey, let's talk about the next song that you brought to the table. How do I know you're not lying to me? Is that it?
Yep.
Yeah, tell me just a little bit about that, and then we'll have the audience take a listen to it.
Well, people have said, that song reminds me of early Willie Nelson, as well as Gentle on My Mind, the John Hartford song. And I wasn't really aware of the John Hartford similarity. To me, it's kind of a generic country progression, although I did alter the chord to a C major seventh, which you'll hear. For folks who don't know what chord that is, it's a very moody chord. But I wanted to write a song in the kind of classic early 60s Nashville, like guys like Harlan Howard and Hank Cochran and early Roger Miller and early Willie Nelson. They just wrote these compact, perfectly constructed songs, like we were talking about earlier, about not a syllable wasted. And so I tried to write what I thought was a Willie Nelson song. And of course, people say it sounds like Glenn Campbell. But,
of course, right?
But no, and I think it's a good phrase. It's a long title, but when people have a history of being dishonest with you, like, how do you know you're saying you're sorry, but how do I know you're not lying right now?
Exactly.
So that was the gist.
Excellent. All right. Hey, everybody, check it out. We'll be right back after the song.
I have lived and I have learned. As far as I'm concerned, I'm all the wiser now. Going through the changes and the phases and the stages with you. The many times I've been burned, still you return to take another bow. How do I know that you're not just lying to me now? How do I know you're not playing that same song again? Such a pretty tune, have I forgotten too soon how it ends? You say you have changed, and you will arrange to make it up somehow. How do I know that you're not just lying to me now? For the time here on earth, is it really worth all the fuss and fight? Hearts that are broken and words that are spoken in the angry night. You beg and you plead, you say it won't lead to another round. How do I know that you're not just lying to me now? How do I know that this time you will really be true? I've heard it before, and if I hear it once more, don't know what I'll do. You say that you care, and you would not dare break another vow. How do I know that you're not just lying to me now? How do I know that you're not just lying to me now?
Hey, Gene, that was a great song. Thanks for bringing that to the table. And you had mentioned quickly that you've done some work in Nashville. I'm really interested in your experiences down there.
Well, I always would take the trek to Nashville and to Memphis when I could, just like a pilgrimage.
Okay.
Because so much of the music I love and that I'm inspired by comes from Memphis and Nashville. And since I was a teenager, a few years I would take the drive down there. So I've seen it change, you know.
Oh God, yeah. It's Disneyland now.
Well, yeah, but around 1979, it was like Skid Row, like the Lower Broadway in Nashville.
Wow.
And that's why they moved the Grand Ole Opry out of the city. And then it over in the 80s and 90s, it started to get cool, and BR 549 were playing, and all these honky tonks started to open up. It was very cool. But now you're right. Now it's way over the top. It's like Party Town, and it's like Bourbon Street.
We went last October.
Loud.
Yeah, we went last October. We have couples that we go on trips with, and I thought it was a joke. It's a bridesmaid capital, you know, and everywhere you look, you can have a lot of fun. But everywhere you look, there's a 4-story rooftop bar with some country.
I don't get it.
Yeah, it's.
I mean, I know people who work that circuit, and they're good friends of mine, and all that, and I just can't relate to it. It's like a nightmare. I wouldn't want to play there.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, not in that environment that you just described.
Right. Exactly.
But the business is there, though, and it's not just country music. You got like Peter Frampton lives there. You know, it's a major music city, and a lot of songwriters and musicians live there. You know, it's like in L.A. everyone has a screenplay, but in Nashville everyone has a song.
Right.
And you get some of the greatest guitar players in the world are playing for tips.
Yeah.
You know, and it's you know, it's kind of like, okay, you know, I'm used to being a big fish in a small pond, you know. But I went most recently there as a songwriter.
Okay.
Through my publisher who set up my meetings. It was kind of like a series of blind dates.
Okay.
With songwriters, ranging from young hotshot guys to, grizzled veterans of the scene. And we would you show up and I'm like, hello, tell a little bit about yourself. And then, so what do you got? You got a title? You got an idea for a song? Well, I've been working on this. I got this guitar riff. And for the next few hours, you just kind of woodshed and you just try to come up with something. And that's how these guys do it. And that's why, co-writing is really the way to go in that town.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had a guest on the program, a guy named Charlie Cullis, who is from Laddingtown, originally from Maspeth. When I first heard his music, I'm like, this sounds like a 25-year-old country guy singer, right? He's not. I'll leave it at that. But he explained the same thing that you explained about co-writing and going down there and meeting a gentleman. And he had this idea of, hey, let's bring this party back to my hotel room. And he knocked it out with a pretty famous songwriter, and they worked it through and put the formula together, and that was that. That was kind of an interesting take on how to approach music, you know.
Well, I learned a lot.
Oh, yeah?
I tell you, I mean, I learned, again, about construction, and these guys really have rules about, well, you can't say the title here, you have to wait here, you know.
Oh, interesting.
It's a real, oh, yeah. It's a real formula in a good sense. It's a tried and true approach. And co-writing, which I really had not ever done much of, co-writing is very freeing because you're not as married to the song as you would be by yourself, where you're like, oh, this is my song and don't touch it.
Right.
When you're co-writing, you let it go, you bounce back, and you don't get so hung up on this part, and also you don't take it quite as seriously in terms of life and death. It's like, let's just see what we can come up with, and that allows ideas to flow, ideas that you might have not even entertained before if you were writing by yourself. Now you're just going back and forth. And that's how a lot of that stuff gets done. And I worked with a whole bunch of different people. And just a few of the songs, the thing is, if you really got a good song, then you got to invest money into a demo. And a demo is virtually like releasable. It's that good. A demo has to be that good.
Right. And
then you shop it around to producers and artists. And then invariably the artist wants to get in on it, So I can't boast any hits that came out of that experience, but other than I learned a lot, and a few of the songs are kicking around still. But what happened was COVID kind of happened, and the idea I had to curtail my trips.
Sure.
And I'll tell you also, to be really honest, I realized that if I wanted to make this really happen as a songwriter, I would have to live there. And I would have to pay a lot of dues. And at this point in my life, I love where I work, and I have a great band, and I have a nice following. And, the idea of moving to Nashville to compete with thousands of others, I said, okay, I'm going to stick where I'm at.
Right. Work this field and see what it produces. And I got a question for you. When you said the artist wants in on it, what do you really mean by that?
Oh, I'm sorry. This, copyright is where it's at. That's where, at least in the old style of how royalties were paid, songwriting credit is, that's where it's lucrative. So every singer down there with any pull will try to get in on the credit, and either legitimately by contributing, or sometimes just
or by arm twisting
name on it. Yeah.
Right.
But that's how it's done. Yeah, because that's really where the money is, or used to be. I don't know where the money is now. I think it's selling T-shirts.
Right. Right. Yeah. The market changes. Yeah. Hey, let me ask you this. I heard you on WUSB. Excuse me. I forgot who you were filling in for, but I thought it was a great show. And let me preference this too, in that my wife had a butcher shop in Massapequa Park, big old time country music fan. And when the country music stations left New York, she was heartbroken. And I was a traveling salesman, and I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with New York, but every other state in the world plays country music. Like, what the hell happened? So anyway, just that was an aside, but it was nice to hear you on WSB. So tell us a little bit about that. I'm not just filling in. I now am the alternate host. Excellent. Every other Sunday. Great. And it's fun. It's fun to do. It's made me reassess the music. I get to play country music for 1 hour, and I try to present a wide variety. And I could play myself, but I haven't given in to that temptation. There's too many other things. But yeah, it's fun to finally be on that side of the microphone as a DJ. Well, I can certainly send you a few Americana independents. You probably know these people already. That do great. Actually, I wouldn't mind that, because I am deficient on really new and really good stuff. Okay. I know the classic stuff, so I want to get some of the newer things. It's good for me as a writer and as a radio guy. Two people come to mind off the top of my head. One is a guy named Peter Mancini, who's done work. He was in the USB concert. Great guy, great guitarist, another humble guy. I also ran into this trio out of Brooklyn, of all places, that do bluegrass. They're called Damn Tall Buildings. They've been around for 10 years. And one guy comes from Montana. They call him Montana, of course, because they're not very creative with names. Gal comes from, I think, Philly, and the third guy comes from New Hampshire. And they all settled in Brooklyn together, which just kind of blew my mind,
Yeah.
Brooklyn is the center of the world, for those who don't know right now. But they've got some really great music, and it just kind of...
I know Pete.
Yeah, Pete's a really nice guy. Really,
He is a good guy.
Really, really good guy. So, and then who did I just have? I just had another guy just came out, was a guy named Gregory Dwayne. And Gregory Dwayne is from Manhattan. He was a really cool guy with a really unique voice. And this other guy who's on Facebook all the time, Dante Mazzetti. Have you heard of him?
Yes, I have.
I
think he was included in some kind of Sag Harbor Music Festival.
Yes, he was. Yeah, because Peter James was there, and he had mentioned that as well. And he's a New York City firefighter, and he's the one who kind of like grabbed the Ferris wheel at the right time with the social media in doing his music on a balcony in Chelsea. You know?
I did see that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of cool, but it's.
Yeah.
You got to get out, you got to keep working and changing and get out of your comfort zone, I guess. But get out of your comfort zone, but stay in your wheelhouse, I guess. Hey, that's a song, brother, right there. Get the pen. He's getting the pencil out now, everybody. I can see it.
Well, let me tell you a comfort zone story. Do we have a moment?
We've got all the time in the world. I'm enjoying this.
I'll tell you the story. I was driving to Nashville, and I had a lot of trepidation. I was nervous about what am I trying to do here? I have all these appointments with these young guys and songwriters, and I don't know if I could hang with these people.
Okay.
I'm on the phone with my wife driving, and I'm like, and she said, it's okay to be out of your comfort zone. And so I hung up, and yes, I think I hung up, and I wrote down comfort zone. Could be a good title. And then I had a songwriting session like 9 o'clock the next morning. Can you name me Blake Shelton, right?
Okay,
That's
sure.
a big guy,
Yep.
right? Is he married to a famous?
Yeah, Gwen Stefani from No Doubt.
Okay. Well, the guy I was writing with was friends with Blake Shelton.
Okay.
And he was like, we got to write something for Blake Shelton. And I said, well, I have this song idea called Comfort Zone. He goes, dude, that's a great idea. Comfort zone. All right. What rhymes with comfort zone? I was like, I said, I thought I was a Rolling Stone. Dude, Rolling Stone. Blake is a huge Rolling Stones fan. He's going to love this. He was so excited. I haven't heard anything from Blake or Gwen or anyone. But that came from a conversation with my wife about comfort zones and how to get out of that.
All right, so I'm not going to get in on that one when that goes.
No, you're not part of that.
That's why you wanted to get it on the record. I get it. That is cool, man. So when you get these appointments, is it your producer, your promoters like plugging you into these appointments of, kind of networking and going it that way? And do you meet in the studio? Do you meet at their house, or paint the picture for me?
Both.
Okay.
You meet either at their house or on Music Row. There's all these offices.
Sure.
And the cool thing was in this experience for me, again, I used to go down to Nashville and just kind of haunt and walk around and take in the sights, which all these cool things that they're destroying now, tearing down, all these cool buildings that, Gene Vincent recorded here and Buddy Holly recorded there. It's gone. But anyway, there's all these skyscraping offices. And, I used to walk by there and say, oh, okay, that's that publishing company. That's that record company. But it was nice to finally be on the other side indoors in these offices, finally, to see how that worked. And so that was kind of gratifying.
Hey, have you ever
be inside the door?
Have you ever been to Martin's in Nashville? Martin's?
The guitar?
There is a connection with Guitar Company. It's a when you first walk into the place, it's off the beaten track. It's not like in the center of town, but it looks like a regular takeout. And then you go up the steps, and the whole place opens up, where there's a stage and everything else. Really, kind of a cool place.
Boy, no, that's not familiar. That sounds
Martin's.
cool.
It's like Martin's looks like a little takeout place with maybe 20 picnic tables in, and then you see this huge staircase, and boom, you walk up there, and there's a stage that opens up to a back road, and we had fun there. Anyway, at Martin's. You also mentioned Memphis. Memphis is one of my favorite towns. Beale Street, they've commercialized to a certain degree, but you still get a lot of great blues music, all the open air taverns and bars and stuff like that on Beale Street. And B.B. King's was a great place to hear music, Sun Records and everything else. So have you gotten to Memphis more often as well, or here and there? Whenever
I had an extra day and a full tank of gas, I would drive down to Memphis. I just felt I needed to connect with that. And there's a spirit in the air. I know it's kind of corny, but I feel it. And the look, and it's a very old town now. And the old Memphis is virtually crumbling. And, the disparity of wealth and poverty is pretty severe. And, it's a hardcore town. You got to be on your toes. But I totally idolize and revere, that Sun Records era, and the Stax Records and the soul legacy is just so powerful. And just being there, you feel like there is something in the air.
Or in the water or something, right?
It's there, and it's the look. You see these houses and these shacks and these cool old buildings, these theaters, and you just soak it up, man. It's like, this is where it comes from, and it makes sense.
Yeah, my impression of Memphis was very interesting. Same thing as far as a lot of things that are run down in a tough town, and you go on the outskirts of Memphis, and it's like extreme wealth. Germantown, all these other places. Like, what do? They took all the wealthy people left, and then they built Beale Street, and they built a nice AAA baseball park. And it's nice. It's a nice place to bring your family and listen to music for sure.
Have you ever seen a movie by Jim Jarmusch, Mystery Train?
Rings a bell, but
early 80s. If you ever get a chance to see that, and it's like 3 or 4 different vignettes all take place at the same time, one night in Memphis. And this is when Memphis was not being built up yet, where Beale Street was like a bombed out block. And it's a very hip movie and great music. And that vibe is, if you see that movie and go to Memphis, you can feel that vibe.
Did you get Memphis? All right, I'll have to put a link in for it. And let's do this. Let's switch gears again.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the third song that you brought, Tony Joe White. Tell us about Tony Joe White.
Oh, that's good. That's a good segue.
Wow. Thank you. And by the way, none of this is scripted, anybody. So just, we come upon these things by the good grace of God, I guess. So,
yeah, I'm still at Murph's right now. So,
well, come back, Tony. Come back, Gene. Tell us about Tony Joe White. Kind of fill us in on that person, that song, and we'll let the audience have a gander up.
Well, Tony Joe White. Now, he's one of those artists that was more popular overseas. In Europe and Australia and Japan, he was a star. Whereas back home, he was just a vague, Tony Joe White, Poke Salad Annie. He wrote that. That was his hit before Elvis heard it. And he wrote Rainy Night in Georgia, which was the beautiful song Brooke Benton did. He wrote Steamy Windows for Tina Turner. And he was from Louisiana, and you would have thought he was like this 200-pound black dude, the way he sounded, but he was this lean, mean, honky tonk boy from Louisiana, and played guitar like Jimmy Reed, John Lee Hooker, and Lightning Hopkins. And he wrote these swamp songs, man, about alligators and, real Southern kind of gothic bluesy songs. The most famous being Poke Salad Annie. And I've always admired him and got to see him play a few times. He would come to town just with a drummer, sometimes by himself. And what struck me was that he could have been a star. He was a great-looking dude. like in the late 60s, he could have gotten probably a TV show like Glenn Campbell, but he knew he wasn't cut out for that, and he stuck to his guns, and he carved out a career with just a few known songs, but just enough to get by. And he would travel around. He'd go to Europe, and where he was well regarded. And I knew he was getting old, and I felt like I'm going to write a song that's not, it's a tribute to him. It's called Tony Joe White, but it's not like the life story. It's more about what he means to me in terms of sticking to your guns, being true to your art, and just not letting anything get in the way of being real and authentic. And so, because some people think I'm trying to write his life story, I'm not. I'm using, it's kind of impressionistic, right, I suppose, as opposed to a literal tribute. And I'm pretty happy with the recording. And it was recorded before he passed away, unfortunately. He did get to hear it, though. We did send it to his manager. We know it got to Tony, but we never heard back. But I know he heard it. And so it's, again, it's you don't have to know anything about Tony Joe White to hear the song. It's just about surviving.
Well, the good thing is our audience is going to know both your song and have a link to Tony Joe White. So let's have a listen to it, and we'll be right back after the song. Hang with us, everybody.
Playing tonight at the Blues Hotel. He's a man, well, he's got that thing. Louisiana swamp rock king. He's playing the tune about salad and he's making the swoon, shaking their fanny. Tony Joe, he don't tell no lie. He's got soul to the day he died.
Hey, everybody, we're back. Hey, Gene, you want to tell me a little bit more about that song about Tony Joe White?
Well, that was a ambitious production, as you'll hear, with the horns and the harmonica and the slide guitars. And I was very proud to have Andy Burton on organ and electric piano. Andy works with Miami Steve Van Zandt, Disciples of Soul.
Sure.
And he's actually touring with Cyndi Lauper. But Andy and I go way back to the Wild Rose Cafe in Bridgehampton in the early 90s. And it was great to have him on that song. I think he adds a real cool kind of churchy, swampy flavor on the B3 organ.
Nice. That's great. That's what's great about networking over the decades, where you can, in many cases, pick up the phone and say, hey, I think you'd be perfect for that. And most people are pretty generous if they have the time to make it, and did you do this all in the studio in person, or? Well,
it's funny I was just about to say, he phoned it in, he did it at his studio. I sent him the track on the, you send the file, and then he added the organ and he sent it back to us. So even though I do see and work with him quite a bit, that's how we did it. And that is how most people are doing their records these days.
Right.
Doing it at home and sending files. And and that's good and bad, but for a musician like Andy and myself, we've worked together so often, we know he's in the room anyway, so to speak.
I got you. You can kind of figure out each other's spontaneity in just him listening to your track, where I would suppose somebody new to it, you may rely on that a little bit more. So what are you producing now? What direction are you taking with your music?
Well, since the pandemic, I wrote a lot of songs in that kind of those dark days, and I have enough for an album, but I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna release a few singles, and then put it out as an album. But I'm doing it because I have to. It's not like the world is demanding it. It's not like my livelihood depends on it, on songwriting royalties. But my state of mind, like I mentioned to you earlier, I picked up the guitar and I wrote a song with the first two chords I knew. I've been writing. I can't stop writing, so I have to do it. It's just, it's a calling of sorts, or it's who I am. It's the way that I walk and think. So I'm just, I take a hit having to record it myself. I don't have a record company footing the bill. And I don't do GoFundMe stuff. I just, I work with my band, and I have a great situation in my marriage and my home, very supportive. And I do the best I can with my budget, and I try to get the music out there. So that's what I'm doing. I can't stop, even though it doesn't make sense. People say that, you're wasting your time. Even, like big acts don't want to bother, but I have to bother because that's how I roll.
I heard that's the way you roll. When you think about how you're wired from a very young age in this writing mode, I heard this, and I can't attribute to who I heard it from, but the artist has a conversation with his audience over a long period of time. The conversation changes in many cases, because sometimes you have to morph a little bit and grow, right? Yeah. But you have that need to be heard and continue the conversation. That's what I'm hearing.
I like that.
There's no good reason for it. Yeah, maybe you think I'm wasting. Here's another song idea. Maybe you think I'm wasting my time, but you're really not, And I guess what you may know in some instances when people come up to you, and that's the icing on the cake, when they say, hey, that really hit me, or
that is.
And there'll be the 10 million times it's hit somebody at home or listening to it that you may never know, but you put it out there. And because you were tedious about that obsession of continuing the conversation that you may never know the benefit of your art on people.
I think that's exactly right about the conversation, because I'm having a conversation with the ghost of Hank Williams. I'm having a conversation with John Lennon. I listen to their music and I'm responding to their music and I'm putting it out there. It's going around this room, of voices. And I'm contributing. Even in my small way, I'm contributing to the discussion. And whatever it is, discussion is of music and life and impressions. By recording and trying to distribute my music, I'm just a small voice, but I feel it's getting heard. And I play live, and I have people who request my songs, and I can see people singing along. They know the lyric. I've had my songs played at people's weddings. I've had my songs played at people's funerals. They come up to me and tell me that this song means a lot to them. So that's the reward, man. I mean, that's like I'm part of this conversation that's very much alive.
That's great. Well, thanks for sharing that. I appreciate that. And let's talk about the fourth song, the last song that you brought to the table, which may tie into the songwriting, is Hey, Mrs. Troubadour. And when I started this episode, I gave the simple definition of a troubadour being a poet, bringing lyrics to music. So tell me about that song.
Well, it's a song about, it's very evident. It's about the non-glamorous life of a playing musician, of a working musician, getting home, the wee small hours, surviving, drunk drivers, cops, potholes, your own wanting to fall asleep at the wheel, and getting home and your wife is waiting for you. She's been half asleep, kind of keeping an eye on the time, hoping I'd get home. It's about having to sleep late, missing most of the day because you're resting up for the night. It's about the van breaking down and having to borrow a car. It's about, a man and woman just trying to make his career work. And I know a lot of musicians can relate to this. It's firsthand. And I just thought it'd be worth kind of acknowledging. This is, it's not all glitter and
right.
Not that, anyway, that's obvious, but I think it's a true song. It comes from a true place.
Great. All right. Let's listen to Hey, Mrs. Troubadour. And we'll be right back after this.
Crumpled $20 bills laying by the windowsill, a guitar pick and an empty glass of wine. These are the things he leaves behind. The life of the party in recline. Tiptoe through your busy day, let him sleep the day away. Always keep an eye on the time. Take his favorite shirt up of the line. An early evening coffee, rise and shine. Hey, Mrs. Troubadour, what have you been waiting for? Did you ever think it'd be this way? Hey, Madam Superstar, can he take the other car? The van broke down, another town to play. Mrs. Millionaire, have you any more to spare? You know he'll make it up to you someday. 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 All alone at 3 a.m., one eye on the clock again, praying that he makes it home alive. You thought you heard him coming up the drive. Next thing you know, it's almost 5. Hello, babe, it's late, I know. Are you alright? How did it go? The king of rock and roll has arrived. Well, it was just another dive, just another night to survive. Hey, Mrs. Troubadour, what have you been waiting for? Did you ever think it'd be this way? And here, Madam Superstar, can he take the other car? The band broke down, another town to play. Hey, Mrs. Millionaire, have you any more to spare? You know he'll make it up to you someday, 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 someday.
Hey, everybody. We're back with Gene Casey. And I just want to tell you quickly, we do have a listener line where you can leave your comments about this show or any artists and guests that we've had. It's 631-800-3579. Leave your voicemail, be an MP3. Tell us if we can use that. And I share it with the artist to let them know how you feel about their music and the conversation, and if you want more information on things. And with that, Gene, what's your website?
Oh, it's a toughie. GeneCasey.com.
Right.
Gene, GeneCasey.com. Has my calendar, which is pretty full, I'm happy to say. So check out where we'll be playing.
We'll have the links in the chapter marks as well as at the gigdestiny.com site. We'll also have the links when this gets published to, you can find this episode everywhere. But you also mentioned you have some sort of Christmas gig coming up in December as well.
Yeah, there's the beautiful Suffolk Theater in Riverhead. We've done this for about 6 or 7 straight years with one break for the pandemic. We didn't do it. They call it a Rockabilly Christmas, and it's we're part of it, Gene and the Lone Sharks, and the headliner is Jason D. Williams, who's from Memphis. He's kind of like if you combined Jerry Lee Lewis and the Tasmanian Devil, it would be Jason D. Williams on the piano, and he's a lot of fun. And we've been doing this Christmas-themed rock and roll show for, I guess, 6 or 7 years. And
that's great.
That's December 9th in Suffolk Theater. It's a nice theater.
Yep, that's in Riverhead. So on the 9th of, anyway, we'll have it in on our chapter marks, and I hope to be there and see you out there.
Let me know.
And let me tell you, Gene, I've had so much fun. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Long Island Sound. You've definitely added to the Long Island Sound over the decades that you've played. I wish you all the best out there. And I end my podcast this way from my friend Bob, who told me, we can account for what we have in the bank and other things, can never account for what time we have here on Earth. And the fact that you gave me your time, a little over an hour here, plus the prep and getting this interview together, I'm very grateful. Very grateful.
I am grateful as well. I appreciate the conversation and the support that you're showing, and we need people like you. Thank you. And thanks for everyone listening out there.
All right, brother. We'll hear you every other Sunday on WUSB, the Stony Brook station. And Gene, I really look forward to meeting you in person. All right?
All right, buddy.
All right. Be well, brother. Take care, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I appreciate the time you spent with us. Please subscribe and comment and visit us at gigdestiny.com. Till next time, be generous with your joy, keep your spirits high, and let the music take you on a journey. Be well. Peace. Thanks so much for listening. Please rate, review, and comment on the show. We really love to hear from you. And call our listener line at 631-800-3579. Again, thanks so much. Be well.